For many years we used to grow our chili and capsicum plants as annuals, and we really didn't get very good crops because our growing season up here is pretty short, and we would get a few chilies and a few capsicums, but then the plants would die. It was about 5 or 6 years ago that we found out that you could actually keep chili plants and capsicum plants as perennials, so that means they'll last more than just 1 year. But the trick is you need to keep them in a spot where you can protect them from the worst of the winter cold, and in particular keeping them away from frosts. From that point in time, we've been keeping our chilies and our capsicums here in our greenhouse. These plants that I have in my greenhouse are, I think they're about 5 or 6 years old now, and I've got a variety of plants in this in-ground bed that we've got in the greenhouse, and also a few plants in pots as well. All these plants are looking pretty ratty at the moment, and that's because we are kind of just starting to warm up here. It's mid-spring, but it's been a really cold start of spring this year, so it's taken everything a little while to get going. These plants here are our capsicums, and moving across we have some habanero chilies, and the plants we have in these pots here are our cayenne peppers. Now this year, as I mentioned, it was a really cold and wet year. So although all of these plants that I'm showing you here have survived, we have had a few losses as well. Here we have a couple of my habanero chilies. These ones were about 2 years old, and sadly they didn't make it through the cold this winter. And on the other side of my bromelid here, I've got another one as well that didn't survive. It was an extremely harsh winter though, to the point that even some of the plants that I've successfully kept and overwintered for years also haven't survived. So this bed here is my sweet potato bed, and I've had these going for probably about 5 years now, and there's no sign of green at all coming up, unfortunately, from this bed this year. And normally by now it'd be starting to take over the entire corner of my greenhouse. This one here is one of my eggplants, and sadly this guy has also not survived the winter. If you are considering overwintering your chili plants or your capsicum plants, this one here is a good example of what you need to do before you start getting into the real cold of winter, definitely before you start hitting those first frosts. What we've done here is we've cut the plant right back, basically taking off a lot of that green leafy matter and also the more tender parts of the stems. As mentioned, it has been really cold and it's only just started warming up here, so this plant here hasn't started regrowing its leaves yet. But I do have most of the other ones that are now starting to take off. So you can see here that we've got some new growth on these plants. In fact, we've even got a few chilies left over on some of these. And the capsicums are taking off with new growth too. In fact, we can even see we're starting to get some flowers starting to form. Aside from appropriately pruning back your plants when winter's starting, the other tip I would give you is just to consider if you can find a spot in the ground for your plants as opposed to pots, because as you can see here, we've had a lot more success with the plants that have been in the ground versus the ones that we had in pots. As your plants start to age, they can start looking a bit gnarly, like this one here. This is one of our oldest plants. But I expect we'll probably get another season or two out of this, and then it will eventually die off. Or if it gets to the stage where the production is starting to reduce, it can be time to pull this one out and pop a new plant in its place. I hope these tips give you the confidence to have a go at overwintering your chili and capsicum plants too. It's definitely worthwhile and it'll definitely bump up your harvest. Thanks for watching. Bye.